The Lighthouse Keeper's Secret. Chapter 1. The Coastal Town of Fairhaven. The small town of Fairhaven rested on the edge of a rocky coastline where the land met the endless expanse of the ocean. Life there was simple and quiet, revolving around fishing, farming, and the rhythm of the tides. At the heart of the town's identity was its towering lighthouse, a beacon of safety for sailors navigating the treacherous waters. Fairhaven's lighthouse was more than a landmark, it was a symbol of mystery. It had been maintained for over 2 decades by a solitary figure named Mr. Theodore Grayson. Tall, with a wiry frame and a weathered face, Mr. Grayson rarely ventured into town. On the few occasions when he did, he exchanged only a few words with the townspeople. Rumors about him were abundant. Some claimed he had once been a famous sailor who turned his back on the sea after a tragic event. Others whispered that he guarded a secret treasure hidden within the lighthouse. Children often dared one another to approach the lighthouse, but none ever succeeded. For 14-year-old Clara, Mr. Grayson's secret was a puzzle waiting to be solved. Chapter 2. A Storm Approaches. Clara lived with her father, James, a fisherman, in a small wooden house overlooking the harbor. Her mother had passed away when Clara was very young, and her father had raised her with the help of the tight-knit community. Clara loved the sea as much as her father did, often helping him prepare his nets and clean the day's catch. One chilly autumn morning, Clara woke to the sound of the wind howling outside her window. Dark clouds loomed over the horizon, and the waves crashed angrily against the rocks. James had already left early to fish, despite the stormy weather. By afternoon, the storm had grown fiercer and Clara was growing anxious. She stood by the window, watching the lighthouse beam pierce through the rain, when a knock at the door startled her. She opened the door to find Mr. Grayson standing there, his long coat dripping with rainwater. His stern face softened slightly as he spoke. "Your father's boat is caught in the storm," he said. "He's heading toward the lighthouse for safety. I need your help." Clara's heart raced. "What can I do?" "Come with me," Mr. Grayson replied. "Time is of the essence." Chapter 3. The Lighthouse in Action. The climb to the lighthouse was treacherous in the storm. The path was slippery with mud, and the wind seemed determined to push Clara back down the hill. Mr. Grayson led the way with steady determination, holding a lantern to light the path. Inside the lighthouse, Clara was surprised by the warmth and orderliness. The walls were lined with shelves filled with books, maps, and nautical instruments. A spiral staircase wound its way up to the beacon at the top. "Follow me," Mr. Grayson instructed, climbing the stairs 2 at a time. At the top, the enormous lamp rotated slowly, casting its powerful beam over the churning sea. Mr. Grayson handed Clara a pair of binoculars. "Look for your father's boat," he said. Clara scanned the turbulent waves, her hands trembling. Finally, she spotted a small fishing boat struggling against the current. "There!" she shouted. Mr. Grayson adjusted the lighthouse beam, sending a series of flashes toward the boat. "Your father knows the signal. He'll steer towards safety." Chapter 4. A Locked Room. As they waited, Clara noticed a small door behind the beacon. "What's in there?" she asked. Mr. Grayson hesitated. "That's where I keep my private records," he said curtly. Clara's curiosity was piqued. "Can I see?" "No," he replied firmly. Then, after a moment, his tone softened. "Perhaps another time." The storm raged on, but under Mr. Grayson's guidance, Clara's father managed to navigate his boat safely into the harbor. Exhausted but relieved, Clara thanked Mr. Grayson and hurried down to meet her father. Chapter 5. A Growing Friendship. The next day, Clara brought a loaf of bread and a jar of her father's homemade jam to the lighthouse as a thank you gift. Mr. Grayson seemed surprised but invited her inside. Over time, Clara began visiting the lighthouse regularly. She was fascinated by the maps and journals that lined the shelves and eagerly listened to Mr. Grayson's stories about his life at sea. One afternoon, as they sat by the fire, Clara asked, "Why did you leave the sea?" Mr. Grayson stared into the flames for a long moment before answering. "Sometimes the sea gives, and sometimes it takes away. I lost people I cared about. I decided it was time to come ashore. Clara sensed there was more to the story, but she didn't press him. Chapter 6. The Chest Revealed. One stormy evening, Clara asked again about the small door behind the lighthouse beacon. This time, Mr. Grayson didn't refuse. Inside, Clara found a treasure trove of nautical artifacts, weathered maps, a captain's log, and a collection of old photographs. On one shelf sat a small, locked chest. "What's in there?" Clara asked. Mr. Grayson smiled faintly. "My most important treasure." He unlocked the chest and lifted the lid. Inside was a tiny, intricately carved wooden box. He opened it to reveal a compass. Clara was puzzled. "A compass?" "This isn't just any compass," Mr. Grayson explained. "It was a gift from the captain of the first ship I sailed on. He told me it would always guide me to safety, and it has. It's more valuable to me than gold." Chapter 7. Clara's Discovery. Over the next few weeks, Clara learned more about Mr. Grayson's life. He had indeed been a sailor, traveling to distant lands and encountering countless adventures. But a devastating shipwreck had claimed the lives of his crew, leaving Mr. Grayson as the sole survivor. "The lighthouse became my refuge," he said. "Here I can still serve the sea, but from a safer distance." Clara felt a deep respect for Mr. Grayson and his quiet strength. Chapter 8. A New Storm, a New Purpose. One evening, another storm rolled in. This time, Clara joined Mr. Grayson at the lighthouse without hesitation. She had learned how to operate the beacon and read the maps, and she was determined to help. As the storm raged, a distress signal came from a cargo ship caught in the waves. Clara worked alongside Mr. Grayson to guide the ship to safety, using the lighthouse beam and Mr. Grayson's old compass. When the ship finally docked, the grateful crew hailed Mr. Grayson and Clara as heroes. Chapter 9. Passing the Torch. Years passed, and Clara continued to visit the lighthouse. She grew into a confident young woman with a deep love for the sea. When Mr. Grayson decided to retire, he passed the responsibility of the lighthouse to Clara. "You have the heart of a sailor," he told her, "and the courage of a lighthouse keeper." Clara took the compass he had given her and placed it in the lighthouse's small room, where it would continue to guide her as it had guided Mr. Grayson. Chapter 10. The Legacy Lives On. Under Clara's care, the lighthouse remained a beacon of safety and hope for sailors navigating the dangerous waters of Fairhaven. She often thought of Mr. Grayson and the lessons he had taught her about bravery, resilience, and the importance of guiding others. And whenever a storm rolled in, Clara stood at the top of the lighthouse, holding the compass tightly, ready to face whatever challenges the sea might bring. Thank you for joining Clara and Mr. Grayson on their incredible journey. We hope you enjoyed learning English with this captivating story. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more exciting stories and English lessons. And tell us in the comments, what would you do if you were in Clara's shoes? See you in the next story.